Hi, this is Jennifer Rubin for PJTV. I'm here at the corner of 16th and I in Washington, D.C., out front of the AFL-CIO headquarters. With me is Mark Mix. He is president of the National Right to Work Legal Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's good to be here with you.
This is an awful big building, isn't it?
Indeed, the AFL-CIO has done well in the real estate pool here in Washington, D.C. Not only do they have a nice big building here at the corner, but just down the street is the White House. I don't think you can find real estate like this anywhere in America with close proximity to the White House.
Now, the AFL-CIO has a lot of influential people who have found their way into the Obama administration. Tell us about some of them.
Yeah, there's some interesting examples of just in the last month or two of folks from the AFL-CIO building ending up in the government. One in particular is Deborah Greenfield, who was a former attorney here at the AFL-CIO, who was actually suing the Bush administration's Department of Labor about union disclosure.
She was for or against?
Well, she was against the increased disclosure that the Department of Labor was trying to push through at the tail end of the Bush administration. In fact, she was one of the named attorneys in a case against the Department of Labor, and she has now been brought inside the Department of Labor, and she's in charge of, guess what? Union disclosure.
Now that sounds like a classic conflict of interest. Weren't we told that that wasn't supposed to happen in the Obama administration?
Well, that's right. The president promised the American people that things like this wouldn't happen, and folks that were coming inside the administration wouldn't be dealing with issues that they were involved in on the outside of government for over 2 years, and it took her about 2 hours.
Now, there's a lot of people, I suspect, working in this building. They represent working people. Do they have working people's salaries and benefits?
Well, no, they don't. John Sweeney, the president of the AFL-CIO, is making a very handsome salary, and he's got a lot of responsibility. But we do know in 2000 he took a payout of about $1 million that really wasn't well disclosed at all on any union financial reports. They still haven't answered that question about what that was for. But there's a very large group of people in here that are making, 7, 8, 9 times the wages of the people they claim to represent in Washington.
Now, organized labor and some of our liberal friends have often complained that there's a huge gap between the salaries and perks of CEOs of major corporations and the working people. Is that a similar problem to what's going on here?
Well, yeah, those issues are interesting. The one thing I would say is that workers that are paying the salaries of these employees are compelled to pay them as a condition of employment. They really have no choice. They can either be forced out of their job, quit their job, if they have any argument at all with what's happening inside the AFL-CIO. That's an outrage. In the private sector, some of these individual stockholders, they don't believe that's the right policy. They can get out. Things can happen in the private sector that really don't happen here because they have the power of compulsion.
If you work for a major corporation and you're a public corporation, you have shareholder meetings, and you can get up at a shareholder meeting and complain, or you can put forth a petition to cut the salaries of management or throw out the board. They have that sort of democratic institution and control in unions?
Well, they would probably tell us that they do, but there's plenty of anecdotal evidence that indicates that the folks that actually go to these conventions and vote have a vested interest. They have skin in the game, if you will, of protecting all this. In fact, the recent AFL-CIO convention held in Miami, Florida, at the Fontainebleau Hotel. Which,
the Fontainebleau Hotel? That sounds pretty nice.
My French is not very good, but that's the name of the hotel. And we understand rooms there went for $1,000 a night. And here you have an organization that claims to represent the auto workers out in Michigan who are losing their jobs, workers in manufacturing plants in Ohio and Illinois that are losing their jobs, employees across the country who are sacrificing to keep their jobs, and then you have these people jetting down to Florida to have a convention at a hotel, one of the most exclusive hotels in the area, and then billing it all back to the workers they claim to represent.
Now, they disclose exactly how much that all costs? Can we look at a line item on a form someplace and tell what that jaunt cost them?
Well, the line items for this particular event won't be available to rank-and-file workers probably until at least November of 2010, because they would file their LM2 report for 2008 or 2009 in the next year, and then they would ask for an extension most likely. And so the information won't be available, and probably the passions of all that stuff will cool, and people will forget about it. But it really is something to be said about the irony there, and kind of the lifestyle of the quote rich and famous when it compares to the condition of America's workplace today, and those individuals that are laboring to pay those salaries.
Now, if you're a reporter or you're a citizen, you want to find out information about your government, you can send in what's called a Freedom of Information Act request. You can send in a letter saying, I'd like to have some information about how my government is operating. Can you send a Freedom of Information Act request to a labor union?
I don't think so. That's a good idea, by the way, but certainly something that I'm not aware of, and I don't know how how forthcoming they are with information like that. Obviously, hopefully they're complying with the law. I believe that they are, but the bottom line is that rank and file workers have very little control, especially because of the compulsion. I mean, ordinarily you could vote with your pocketbook. You could say, I don't agree with what you're doing, and then so I'm going to withhold my support for your organization. That's the way it works in the marketplace. That's not the way it works for organized labor. They have a compulsory union power that forces workers to say, shut up and pay up.
Jennifer Rubin for PJTV.